our guests, Susan and Shannon. Hello.
Welcome, ladies.
Hi. Hello.
So,
Hi, guys.
how are you doing?
We're great.
So great to have you both in here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, we're better than you guys. We're in sunny Florida, so.
Yes.
We're jealous right now.
Yeah. It is not sunny Montreal, we'll say.
No.
How many feet of snow are you walking in to get to work?
We're actually lucky. It's taking a beating. I'm crossing fingers. If you can see this right here, I'm hoping it's going to be a last that way. But
But it's well below zero still, so it's cold.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, my. I can't even imagine.
I know.
Like, I don't even know what that's like.
Just think really, really cold.
Right. Thanks, Andrew.
See, I used to be a meteorologist. So
That's a really good description.
right now, I just checked. It's 28 degrees Fahrenheit here right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and
I would
that's
say that
kind of balmy, to be honest, compared to some other days. So.
Right. You're in your t-shirt, I see.
Yes.
That's inside. He doesn't like jackets or hats or anything.
No.
Sometimes I wonder if we're actually living in Canada. Well, welcome, ladies, here, and thank you so much for making time to come on our show.
Yeah. There's like.
Thanks for having us.
So I guess we'll start right off by letting you guys each take a turn. I guess we'll start with Susan, and then we'll go to Shannon, and just tell a little bit about yourselves, if that's okay.
My name is Suzanne Boyd, and I, for many, many, many years, was a TV news anchor. I've lived in Florida actually my whole life. I grew up on a farm. My dad was a farmer. And when I was 14, I won the Miss Watermelon pageant in my super small town of Monticello, Florida. And one of the duties of Miss Watermelon was to go on the local CBS affiliate and basically be a guest on their morning show. And I walked in there, and I'll never forget the anchor, Anna Johnson. And I said, that's what I want to do. And so from that point on, I knew that I wanted to be in TV. So I was pretty focused. As Shannon knows, when I get focused on something, I don't let up. And so I went on to work in TV for the next 25 years. I was in Sarasota, Florida, and then I came over here to the West Palm Beach market, and I worked for CBS 12 for 20 years. About a year ago, I started to get really, the news started to really affect me. I tell people it was like sucking my soul. And it really was impacting me. And it was causing me a lot of anxiety. And I woke up every morning at 2:30 to go to work. So it was already a hard schedule to do. And then having to deal with the news on top of that, I just said, I can't do this anymore. So Shannon and I decided to start putting out good content, as we say. So that's kind of how What Your Friends Won't Tell You evolved. So that's my story in a nutshell.
That is so amazing. And we're going to touch back on it after, because there's so many things that you just brought up in them, that quick statement alone. But yeah, that's amazing. And I love the transition. And it seems like you found your place on YouTube. You really feel you have a chance to do news the way you want to be heard, and the stories you want to tell. And that's amazing. I guess we'll go to Shannon.
Yeah, Shannon, what about you?
Okay. Hi, I'm Shannon Thompson-Jones. And it's interesting listening to Suzanne. As close as we are, sometimes it doesn't resonate how similar we are. I too knew at a young age what I wanted to be. I had actually two dreams. So I grew up also in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, pretty much my whole life down here at 2 years old. My whole family's from the Midwest. My mom's born and raised in Ohio, Cincinnati. So I tease that I'm Midwest raised because I have all those Midwest value systems. My mom was in a really tight, close family, and they were all raised kind of on the same block. And if my mom could have it that way today, we would all be living, on the same block. As it is, I'm actually 6 blocks from her, I'll have you know. So I really put my foot down. So I grew up down here, and at a young age, my mom is a psychotherapist. She actually kind of stumbled into psychotherapy. She has 37 years of recovery. So having a sociology degree and then kind of stumbling through her life as an alcoholic and realizing that was not the path for her. And so when I was 10, she became sober and she went back into sociology and became master's in social work and went into the field of being a therapist. So from about 10 years old, I didn't have much of a choice. You're in a therapist home, you're talking about feelings, you're going to learn this, you're going to get this. And so probably by the time I started high school, I started doing counseling with the other kids. So that was one of my passions. The other passion is that I grew up singing, dancing, and acting. And it was always my dream to do something with that. But as I got older, I realized, you know what, I probably am not going to be able to make a career of this. I loved singing. My role model was Whitney Houston, and I pretty much could match her at one point in my life, and dancing was my passion and acting and all of it. But I didn't really see a future that made sense to make money. I didn't think that, you know, I know a lot of people who didn't make it who wanted to be, you know, in that field. Right. So I kind of gave up on that dream and played it safe and followed in my mother's footsteps and went to graduate school and became a psychotherapist. And I've never regretted it. I've always loved it. But there was always this nagging feeling inside of wanting to be on TV or performing. I mean, you know, once a performer, always a performer. So I kind of had that nagging feeling. And when Suzanne and I became acquainted, she had asked me to do some things with her on the news. And I was so excited. Absolutely. Of course, I'll give it a go. And she was so complimentary about how I showed up on film. And, you know, wow, the producers are happy with you, and, you know, let's do more things. So that kind of opened this door that I thought would be closed forever. I never thought I'd get to do anything performance wise or, you know, theatrical or anything like that ever again. And here I am later in my life and stumbling into this. So for Suzanne, it feels so good to do, to be making a difference and helping people. I was blessed to be in that profession to begin with, but I always craved the other side, which was to bring it to the masses and to be on film and to have the theatrical side of it. So we both kind of gotten our dreams all meshed into one with What Your Friends Won't Tell You.
That is amazing.
I got to tell you, when we did the dry run today, usually we do that, and as the night progresses, like when we're all done, Xenia and I will talk and say, you know, God, there's such good chemistry between these people and stuff. With the little bit of time we had today, I got off and I told Xenia, I'm like this, it's unbelievable how these guys gel together. These ladies were meant to do things together. It's such a
we
good
get that
fit.
a lot. Well, it's so funny. I tell the story that, you know, Shannon and I met through a mutual friend. And when we were, one of my news director at the time had said that he wanted me to do this sort of like an investigative piece on the 50 Shades of Grey movies when they came out. Because, you know, the book was so popular and then the movies came out, and he wanted it kind of from the angle of like why women are so drawn to these books and these movies and what is it about that. And so I was trying to come at it from like, you know, not the, you know, the cheesy sex angle, but sort of like the, you know, the therapy sex angle. And so I called up Shannon and said, can you talk about this and, you know, why these are so attractive to women, specifically women. And so she said, yeah. So we sat down for an interview, and I'll never forget what she said. And literally my producers and my news director went crazy because she said it so perfectly. She said, men are like microwaves, you know, you turn them on and they're ready to go. But women are like crock pots, you know, you got to simmer us and you got to cook us all day. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Spot on. It is spot on. I never have heard this, but it is amazingly spot on.
Right?
Don't you
The
think?
analogy.
Oh, sorry, I was on. I couldn't hear. You were simmering, so you took it all in. So
After that, she got her own segment on CBS 12, of course.
Right.
But they were 2-minute segments, and like, how can you fix someone's problem in 2 minutes? So that's kind of where we went with What Your Friends Won't Tell You, and sort of tackling these really, you know, sort of interesting and topics that really affect so many people in a way that is authentic and real honest. You know, we're really honest about how these impact our lives. And then also Shannon is really brilliant at just giving these tools that kind of help you cope with the different challenges and deal with them, and kind of the things that you can do and the actions you can take. She's really all about actionable, like taking action and how you can do that to kind of make your life better, you know?
And I like that because it's kind of like, it's interesting the way you guys met or first did that in segments. It's like you decided, now I'm on YouTube, we can finally address it, talk about it, and even offer the solutions all in the same package. And that seems like something you can do on YouTube that's extremely hard to do on any kind of a network television or any kind of television platform.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, you know, when you're dealing with corporate and when you're dealing with media corporations, you know, they have very specific ways that they like things done and how they want the content and what audience you're going to be targeting.
Yep.
And, you know, we knew what we wanted to do,
right.
And we didn't want to dumb down our content or make it shorter or target, you know, an audience that we knew was not our audience. And
right.
So that was something that we weren't willing to give up.
That is awesome.
Yes.
And you're feeling it already? Both of you are feeling like you're feeling the rewards of it already, even though you're just like really about, you guys are going to take off. I can see it coming a mile away. Are you already starting to feel the rewards of doing it on YouTube? Are you getting what you were hoping to get out of it?
So much more than we were expecting to get. I think that we really were feeling the benefits from day one because we enjoyed it so much. And we were getting feedback from people saying, you've really helped me. You know, I was struggling to come up with this business idea. I was struggling to take the first steps, and now I've started my own business. Or people saying, you know, I felt so alone and now I feel so heard. And so I think from day one, we loved what we were doing. And now we're definitely seeing, like, you know, we can actually make this into a business and really get our voices heard. But just doing this and making a difference for people has been so amazing for us, and the friendship that we've developed and the bonding and just being together. I mean, women will tell you, being with other women, it makes your heart soar. You know, when you go, they just did an article saying that women should have dinner 3 to 4 days a week together because it's known to increase their health and the length of their life. So just that partnership is making a big difference, I know, for me.
Yeah, but I'm actually shocked at the number of men that are responding to our show and watch our show, you know? Yeah. I mean, because really the topics are unisex. I mean, they're not just about women. I mean, we're women, obviously. Yeah. We understand where women are coming from. But, you know, our analytics are pretty surprising that, you know, it's a good chunk of men.
Well, YouTube is a heavily male balance. It's still in that 70-30% viewer in general. So it does get an option, and I mean, that's a good thing because you're getting more men maybe that wouldn't want to ask or don't watch, per se, female shows on television, are more inept to kind of even just lurk for now until they get brave enough to get, you know, commenting and stuff, but it's still making an impact, which is really cool.
They want to know how to work that crock pot.
That's right. That metaphor is running all through the chat right now.
You turn it on, you let it simmer all day.
I think you're immortalized in this right now. I can see it's going to come for weeks. I know.
Right.
But it's nice what you guys are creating and the quality of the work you guys are doing as well. I can see you taking what you learned during broadcasting years and are trying to incorporate it as much. I mean, it's not trying, because we know those cameras are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in a studio, lighting, unionized workers, everything. You guys are really, really pushing it to get that same kind of look that's achieved through a studio, and I was very impressed by that.
Thank
you.
That's
all Suzanne. That's all
yeah, that
Suzanne.
was, well, you know, that was my business for many years. I understand what works. I understand what looks good. I understand lighting. I understand audio. And so, you know, in the beginning, it was just low budget. It was just on my iPhone. And, you know, because we just had to keep it simple in the beginning.
Right.
But then when I quit my job, I said, you know what, I want to take this to the next level. I knew how to produce a show. I knew, you know, from the beginning, we had talked about doing different segments with a commercial break and treating it like an actual half-hour talk show. So we already had this sort of vision from the beginning. And then what happened was, when I left my job, the people just started to fall into place that would help us get to that level. I had a former director at CBS 12 who had built this entire control room in his house that he can punch a show from anywhere. So he can punch up graphics and video, and, so it looks like a slick produced TV show. One of my former commercial production guys, he's our videographer. One of my producers is helping us produce the show. So, I had all these people that I could kind of tap, and, it's, trial and error, what looks good. Like, our first full production show was not exactly what we wanted. We got some of the graphics slimmed down and made them look a little sleeker and cleaner. And, so it's just every single show, I think we're getting better and better. And, the thing was in the beginning, that kind of stuff costs money. So we said, you know what, we're just gonna go in, and hopefully once people see the full production, we'll start getting sponsors. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, literally after the first live production show, full production show, we got our first sponsor.
Is everybody listening out there to that? Because that's what we're saying. And I get channels and I just say, and once I get 2,000 subscribers, I'm going to really start putting some into it. And you don't have to break the bank, but you got to put everything you can into it. What's at your disposal, and always aim to keep getting better and better. And like you
have to show people what you can do.
Yes.
And I think, a lot of people, and this is what I run into a lot of times when I'm talking with people about producing shows. They like, well, how are we going to get it paid for to start? I'm like, you don't get it paid for to start.
That's right.
You just start.
Yeah.
And, and then you like, once people see what you can do, and yes, it requires some faith and it requires a little bit of money. But, to be honest with you, it's not that expensive to put full production behind one of these shows. You can, and you can even barter and say, hey, can you do this for me? And, we'll go in, and split some of the costs later on, or we'll go in and split some of the sponsorships later on. So you can always find those people that can help you get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, they are believing in what you're doing, so that just shows right away that you're doing it right. I wonder, I think, and probably somebody in the chat also are thinking, well, but they already know how to do it. They're just transforming it into YouTube, and that's so easy. What are the differences though that you have to face in changing the formats and the platforms?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest challenge in the beginning is just, knowing that when I was on TV, I instantly had an audience. Mm-hmm. And so I think, a lot of people get disheartened when they start these things, when they start a YouTube channel, or they start doing Facebook Lives, or they start a podcast, whatever digital media space you're in. And I think what happens is people think, well, no one's watching, or, I don't have instantly 1,000 followers, or whatever it is. I mean, yes, I could use my brand to kind of grow our audience a little bit quicker probably than most people can. But I will tell you, these shows aren't going on the Suzanne Boyd YouTube channel. They're going on the What Your Friends Won't Tell You YouTube channel that we started from scratch. Right. We started our Facebook page from scratch, and we've grown that audience, little by little. And what I say at the beginning, and I heard you guys say it too, and I think it's so important, it's all in how you market it. At the beginning of each of your live shows, you've got to tell people, share it. That's the number one thing you can do for us, is share our videos, because then you're reaching a wider audience. So I think people get disheartened because they're not seeing that audience off the beginning, but you will get there. You have to have patience. It's all about, I think it's about patience,
I think that's the biggest thing I see, even in my practice, working in private practice with people. People give up very quickly. I've had people that have changed 5 or 6 jobs, even that they had to go for training for, because it didn't take off right away. Right. And I think, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe. That's one thing I definitely believe was instilled at me from a young age, is if I decided at 15, I think I did decide at probably 15, 16, that I wanted to be a private practice therapist and have my own private practice and get my master's degree, but it didn't happen for another 15 years, or another 10 years. So I think that what Suzanne's saying is absolutely right. We were okay. We were excited about the 100 people and then the 200 and then the 300. And so you just watch it grow. But a lot of people give up too soon on any game they have.
It is unbelievable. Like we had the Adpocalypse last year on YouTube, and that kind of fueled a lot of people to get into it, including us to revamp our channel. But it created this kind of fake, I always call it the fake gold rush. People thought they get 1K, 4K, like 1,000 subscribers, 4,000, they're monetized. They're living on easy street. Done. We're going to be rich, you know?
Right.
And it didn't work out that way. And now I look back and see so many channels that I met in the beginning that have gone, haven't made a video in 6 months, 5 months. It's not instantaneous here. And it's really building your craft and getting better and better and better. And it's the same, like you say, in anything in life is like that. It takes time. You know,
Right.
Yeah, and consistency too. I mean, you guys, how often are you guys doing a show? Every night?
6 nights a week, yeah.
6 nights. So, I mean, that's freaking crazy, you know?
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's amazing, but that's, you know, it's all about consistency.
We were actually getting Shannon to have a talk with us after. I think we need intervention.
She's a great therapist.
I love it. I think that's dedicated.
Consistency is the key.
It is. Like you know as well from TV, I always tell people it's like MASH, for instance. If MASH one week was like Magnum, and the next week it was like Murder, She Wrote, and the next week it was like the news, nobody can connect with what you have to have something consistent and familiar so people can emotionally bond with what you do. And that's when you start to see more of the growth. Same with you guys, you know, your characters. I see where people are going to really, really be gravitating more and more to what you are doing. You really are open and honest. And I think that's what YouTube gives that no other medium can give.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you know, I will tell people too that don't put your eggs all in one basket,
That
you
too,
know,
yes.
because, you know, as you all know, you know, YouTube recently changed the rules and kicked a bunch of people off, and everyone was like, you know, a Facebook algorithm changes constantly.
Yep.
You can't figure it out, you know, so don't, you know, you want your content to be, you want to be in control of it, you know, so just make sure that that's the other advice I would give is make sure that you're, you know, you're spreading yourself in. It's like investing, you know, they tell you, you know, invest across all different platforms. Same with us, you know, we're trying to do everything. We have a podcast, we do YouTube, we have Facebook, we have our, you know, all of our content lives on our website. So if it, you know, so that's the, you know, if I could give people any advice, it's not put all your eggs in one basket.
He's making a website. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just speaking events as well, just, you know, branching out. So that's another avenue for us. Not everyone should quit their day job.
Yes, everyone should quit their day job.
We get messages like that, and sometimes it is hard to watch, and I see people telling us, like, I just hit 500 subscribers. I've given my boss notice in 2 weeks. I'm not going to be working at the grocery store anymore. I'm going to be a full-time YouTuber. And I champion anybody who takes their dreams on hold, but sometimes, too, it's to know when's the right time to break free, you know, and to really have an honest look at what you're doing, and is it going to get you where you got to go in the meantime, you know. Like, you guys were ready for a change. You knew what you had. You know where you were going. You know, it's some kind of jump but a little bit ahead of the game. So you always just got to weigh the options. I'm not saying be cautious, don't do it. Just think it through.
Think it through.
Because some of them tell me they have 3 kids at home.
Rent or the mortgage coming up.
That's right.
If the answer is no, maybe don't quit your job.
Yes, for sure. So
I wanted to go into the in-depth more of the kind of the production of it and see from the inside, from the professional view, how your guys doing it. So maybe we can learn from it too. So when you had the idea, I know watching your shows, you have had it for a good year and a little bit more before you guys started it. And what were the steps at the very beginning, before you started even? What were you doing? Like, I'm sure there was something in promotion or building contacts or anything before you even put that first video up there. What is there to do before we even start putting the content out there?
A lot of brainstorming to start with, and a lot of conversations, and a lot of goal setting, and figuring out and kind of manifesting what you want was the first, the first step for us was many conversations about what we want, what we're looking for, what our goal is, what is our vision, what is our dream, trying to manifest that together. I think that was a big part of it, don't you, Suzanne?
Yeah. We had, and like Shannon said, we had a lot of brainstorming. I mean, even coming up with a name, which I think is very important. I think branding is super important. And, we did a whole brainstorming session on just the name. And we had a whole, back and forward page list of names. And Shannon came up with What Your Friends Will Tell You. And literally that came out of her mouth. And I was like, that's it, because Shannon tells me stuff all the time that my friends don't tell me, My friends tell me I have a problem. They're like, go drink some wine. And Shannon's like, don't drink the wine.
I love that. I love you guys' chemistry.
So there was a lot of kind of that stuff. And, I kind of went into go mode because, I'm all about, marketing and, I am huge on social media. That was a big thing for me throughout my career. In fact, I was one of the initial people on Twitter. I started Twitter probably 10 years ago when there were very people on Twitter. And so I built really a lot of my brand on Twitter. Like I have about 30,000 followers on Twitter just because I was on every single morning talking to people while I was on the air. So I would tweet with people while I was reading the news on the air, and they'd be like, how are you doing that? I'm like, it's a commercial break. And so the last 10 years of my career, I was just, while I was on the air, I would communicate with people, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram now. So I'm always been really big at social. And I don't think people understand, at least not the younger generation, the opportunities they have because of social media and because of the web that we never had, when we were younger.
Right.
Now you can start a whole side business.
Yep.
Right.
Just online. And that's basically what we've done. I had a full-time job for a year that we were doing this. Shannon still has her full-time job, So the opportunities because of social media and the internet and all kinds of digital marketing are limitless, and hello, YouTube, you just YouTube how to do,
everything.
How to start your own show.
Yep.
There's a YouTube video on that.
There's 100 and you can find.
And you know what I love is partnerships are so great because as you can hear, we tease and joke, but oh my goodness, where she is strong, I am weak. She's so proud of me that I'm actually on this right now. I am technologically challenged.
I am. I was like, I don't know about this.
Right. I've really impressed her today. I got to thank you guys. I've scored a lot of points with Suzanne. I have opposable thumbs. Like, it's amazing, when you're a partnership where she's so strong, I'm so weak, and vice versa. So I bring things to the table that she doesn't think in terms of, and vice versa. And I really think that's big when you say, where do you start something like this? If somebody's starting something on their own, it is a lot harder.
Yes.
There is that synergy when you have somebody that you can, bounce ideas and talk and brainstorm and bring
and hold you accountable.
People. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, because there was some, we would do this on the weekends and I'd be like, I'm too tired. She's like, no, Suzanne. No, we got to do our video, so. It's good to have a partner that's someone that, you mesh with and maybe has skills that you don't have, I mean, Shannon, the content that she brings to this show, like, the expertise, where do you see a talk show that has an actual therapist on it? And just so you know, Dr. Phil is not a real doctor.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
He probably is a real doctor, but not a medical doctor.
No. but one heck of a TV marketing ploy.
That's right.
And we'll just leave it at that.
And newsflash, we're not going after the Dr. Phil audience. Which is basically what they told us, that we would have to turn into Dr. Phil or Maury Povich or one of those shows, which, we weren't, that wasn't interesting to us. We didn't want to dumb ourselves down.
No,
We
you
knew
want it
what
to
we
be a
wanted.
feel-good show, feel good and be
With
good.
some good
yeah.
information as well to go with it, some actual information pertinent without shock value, but actual help value into it.
Right.
Now,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
my funniest moment was Suzanne. I remember when we first got started, she's such a detail-oriented person, and we came at this from so many different angles at first with a podcast and different angles of doing the show. And we would talk about it every week when I was at the news studio, and we were getting so excited. And every time I would talk to her, she'd go, okay, well, we're going to figure out that, and then we'll do something. And then I'd come the next week, she'd go, okay, we're going to work on this piece, and then we're going to do something. And one day I just said, we're just doing it.
We're just going to start.
Doing it,
Yeah.
and that's it. okay, we'll just do it. Because, we push each other in exactly the ways that we need.
But that's
yeah,
good.
I mean, because we started like, I bought all the podcast equipment, and we could not figure that out. I mean, I got it down now. I got my little microphone right here. See, but we, I was like, I'm on TV. Like, why would I just do audio? Why would I just do a radio show?
Yeah.
So then we started doing these videos where we go out in like the community and like talk to people and like, what's your problem? And now you fix it. And it was so bad. And I was
Awful.
like, this is not going to work. And then I was like, you know what? I do Facebook Lives every Friday with my co-anchor on the air. I'm like, let's just put up a Facebook Live.
Right.
Let's just put up a Facebook Live and just start that way.
Yep.
So that's how we started. We just started doing Facebook Lives, and then it evolved into YouTube Live, and then it evolved, and now we turn our audio into a podcast. So we're reversing it instead of going podcast, instead of starting with the podcast. So, you just have to start, because the things what do you say, Shannon? The things that aren't supposed to work out, you'll find the door closing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you just take the steps, the doors start to open, the resources show up, but you have to put that energy out there. You can't just keep talking about it. You have to talk about it to each other. You have to talk about it to the world, and you have to take the next step. And then as soon as you do, the next door will open. Then you go through that door, the next door will open. But that's how everything happens. Anybody that an inventor, anybody that's ever invented anything, you have to do that first step, and then the next door opens, and you have to just keep walking through these doors without knowing what's next. I think that's a hard thing for people, not knowing what's next. People want to have it all figured out first.
Yes, they want a guaranteed path. And we do like Tech Talk Tuesdays, where we get a lot of questions from, that's 3 hours of just YouTubers talking, asking questions, figuring stuff out together. And I see that come up regularly. It's almost, what's the guaranteed path for me to be on here? And there's none. There's no, that this is the Wild West of the Wild West. But everybody has the opportunity as well. So there is, there's that balance between it. It's just how far you want to push yourself to see where you can go on.
But I want to ask to Shannon, like as a psychotherapist, how do you learn not to jump over those doors and trip in the meantime? Because a lot of people do want to jump through all of them or run, through the doors and through the walls to that one that they think is colored in gold, and I think it becomes a problem oftentimes. We want to forget about the obstacles, forget about the things in between that you have to do in order to get to that aim. So how do you deal with that frustration in the meantime?
Well, I think that's such a great question. And I think that one of, every therapist you're going to encounter is going to have different philosophies and different belief systems. But one of the things I tell people up front is not from a religious perspective at all, but that I want to teach them spirituality. Right. And to me, spirituality is connecting to yourself, to your truth, to your gut instinct, to the voice inside of you that tells you turn right or turn left. And you're right that many people, one of the first things I like to teach people is about doors, not to shove through doors that are very obviously closed in front of you. By the same token, that you do have to walk through the doors that open. Yes. So for example, I've been through this with people, I had a person in my life who was trying to buy a house, and they just kept getting roadblocks. And some people are, it's like, well, nothing's stopping me. I want this house. Mm-hmm. And they got the house, and they got all the problems that came with the house, and the thousands of dollars of unexpected bills because it wasn't the right house. So I do really try to help people understand and connect to themselves and follow their gut and understand, when you're getting blocked, maybe that means not to go through that door.
Right.
And then you turn a little bit and that door opens wide, then step through that and wait for that next open door, or keep walking until you get that. But don't forge when there's a closed locked door. Don't forge through that, because that's maybe spiritually a way that the universe is saying, I don't want you here.
Right.
Turn here. So I do think that's a powerful thing for people to learn. And it's definitely been a lot of what I've been experiencing in my life and trying to teach people.
And not to give up your dream, because your dream is your dream. Like, we always had a vision for this show, but when the podcast thing didn't work out, or the videos on the street didn't work out, that didn't mean that we gave up.
No.
It just meant that we found a different path,
Right.
And when we started doing the Facebook Lives, it was like, like the angels were singing, and people loved it. And so so that was our door that was opening. It was like, okay, this is what we're supposed to be doing.
It's like the old expression, there's 10 different roads to go to the grocery store. You can still get there just because one's not working for you.
Right. But don't sit on the train tracks at the one where the gates are down.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
And we see
Find
both
another route.
and we see both sides of that here. I see people rushing the gun, and every week they come, their channel's a new thing because it's the big thing on YouTube right now. And it's like, well, weren't you a knitting channel last week, and now you're a gaming channel? And then the next week they come, they're a model railway channel. And it's just like, well, Bob's doing good with it, so I'm going to be great onto it. And it's like they never even, they're more worried about the goal of getting noticed more than what the love of it will get them there. It's like whatever's hot at the moment and not what their passion is. And you need that passion to fuel it, because it's going to be a long run with whatever you're into. So you need to have something sparking, and not just thinking it's going to be like an instant get-rich scheme.
Yes. I always say to everybody in my life, passion sells.
Mm-hmm.
Passion makes money. I have 4 children, 2, I have a blended family. So I have 2 stepchildren, but they're my children. And I have 2 birth children. And they're always talking about 2 of my kids. One's headed to college, one's in college. Well, am I going to make money? I need to pick a career that makes money. I need to pick, Mom, what if psychology, or what if this doesn't make money? And I said, listen to me. Passion makes money.
Mm-hmm.
Go where your passion is. That's, you're going to find success where your passion is. Because how many lawyers and doctors have I met that have gone all the way through school, and then they get to the job and they hate it? They hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're miserable, so they don't make money, they're not successful, and they end up going back to school for something else because they're miserable.
Yep.
So passion is the biggest thing. I love that you use that word.
Yep. Because it does take it into, and this is where you start into this, you're not going to get instant glorification. It's going to be a process.
No.
Very few people shoot up very quickly, and that's just the YouTube is like a rock star's life. It's like going to LA in the 80s. And I always say that just because you have a guitar doesn't mean you're going to be a rock star. And this is our LA now, and it doesn't work that way. There's some channels. Yeah. We've seen a guy, actually a musician, funny. So one of the best musicians, I worked for a huge music company here in Canada, and he blew me away. Xenia called me out. He has 65 subscribers and 6 people watching him in the chat. Better than most channels I've seen with 1 million, but that's the same as seeing somebody playing guitar in a street corner.
Amazing, talented guitar player.
The break never came. The call never went. His mother was sick the day. He had there's millions of reasons why you don't make it in things. It doesn't mean there's a lack of talent or lack of passion, but you got to believe in yourself and be ready for it, because it could never come, or it could take a long time, or it could come tomorrow.
Right.
It's a fickle business. I want to ask you guys something, because you were both in TV. I've said this before. My feelings on YouTube, whatever type of show you do, in the early 2000s, we were introduced, thanks to the writer's strike at the time, reality TV, which quickly we realized was anything but reality. Yeah. But I think it planted the seeds more than ever in people that they wanted finally to cross that wall and feel it. And I think that's what's gravitating people to YouTube or these type of platforms. Is finally, after all this time, they actually do get it. So like your show, which would usually be the quality you would see on TV, but yet you're more accessible and it's more real. And do you feel that we're finally at a point through this media that we're giving them what they want, if that was the case?
I think so. I mean, I've said from the beginning, because people, no matter what platform you're talking about, social media. I mean, that's the word, social
Exactly.
media. It's authentic, it's real, it's who you are. And if you're not that person, I don't think you're going to be successful, no matter what platform you are on.
Right.
I think that, even on Instagram, if you go on Instagram and you see these and the perfect photo, and it's like, yes, I mean, they have 1 million followers or whatever it is, but it doesn't feel real,
No.
and it's not going to last. It's not going to last.
Yeah.
So I think the more authentic you are, and that's the beauty of YouTube. I mean, like, for instance, you guys, I mean, you love doing this. This is your passion. I mean, you must love doing it 6 days a week.
Yes.
But there's so many people that, and you don't have to do something that doesn't feel real to you. I mean, the beauty of YouTube or any of these platforms is that you can speak about anything you want to speak about.
Yes.
You can do anything that you want to do. My son's has a YouTube channel. He goes down water slides and stuff.
Really?
I mean, people love that. It's really weird. But it's just him being him.
For everyone.
And it's like that kind of stuff. Just do what you love to do. If you're a knitter and you love to knit, people will watch knitting YouTube videos for hours.
It's true. It really is true.
Slime. My daughter was started a YouTube channel making slime. I'm like, really? People watch this stuff?
Oh yeah.
Love doing it,
Oh my gosh.
So I think it's all about authenticity. But I think that's life. People connect with people that they feel are real.
Yep.
And aren't putting on a front.
It is. And I say that everything's been done on here, and the only thing unique left to bring to it is you. You're the only unique side of it left. So you got to really highlight that. And some nights we're here when our daughter was sick, and Xenia would leave in the middle. We have this wheel night where we shout out channels, and she'll leave, and there's 200 in the chat, and nobody gets angry. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, I hope she's okay," and we understand, and it's an amazing bond and a repertoire you build with people that way. And then the next night we're on, how's your daughter tonight? I hope that not creepy. Where do you live? Just genuine interest in.
So there are some of those.
Yes, there is. Oh, believe you me. Yes, there is. That's a whole different.
Where do you live and what are you wearing? Yeah. And can I see your toes? Really?
Every woman is getting that. Almost every woman I meet on here has gotten that.
Oh my God! I used to get that all the time on Twitter. Can you show me your feet?
Oh, God.
No, I can't. There are some weird fetishes out there.
Oh yeah. And it's they figure, I guess, with feet, well, it's not as bad as saying I want to see you naked so I can get away with the feet thing and not get arrested. So I think that's the mentality behind it.
If it was a foot fetish, I guess it's better than seeing you naked.
Exactly. Oh my God, the big toe's coming.
Oh my God. I have a hard rule: closed-toed shoes at the office. Hard rule.
Yeah, you never know, right?
I didn't know that rule.
Yeah, I've disturbed people before by wearing open-toed shoes. Enough said.
Oh my God, we need an episode on that.
Yes. Weird fetishes in the office.
Weird fetishes.
Yeah.
But it's true. A lot of YouTube women that we've talked to, that is a common request they get is feet.
Yeah.
It's something
I can probably pull up about 50 Twitter messages right now of people that ask me to see my feet.
Yeah, I could make a Twitter profile just for that.
There's your new channel.
Suzanne's Boyd feet.
Yes. I'll let someone else do that one.
Oh my God, I had no idea, Suzanne.
Yeah.
There you see, you're learning something new about each other.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Their new channel's coming. What your feet won't tell you, folks. So get ready.
Oh my God. Someone's searching that domain up on GoDaddy right now.
Exactly. They're going to capitalize on it.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
So speaking about the themes for the show,
No, excluding feet.
excluding feet, you have a wide array of different categories and themes that you're discussing. How do you come up with the things to discuss on the following show? Or do you have a plan ahead for the months, or do you just come up with it before? Because I know you said that it's not scripted show. How do you do that theme choosing, or what you're going to be talking about? Because some of your segments are pre-recorded that you're using there as well, so there still is some production that way, yet it's not scripted in the way when you're talking with each other. So I just want to understand, how do you create the actual segments and the show while you're recording it?
There's a couple different ways. I'll let Suzanne talk about some of the ways that the shows that people sponsor, but one of the main ways that we come up with the segments is from our own lives. I mean, we're in it with everybody, right? We're in the trenches with everybody, raising kids, you know, being married, going through divorces, going through all kinds of stuff, just like everybody else, illness, car accidents. So a lot of our shows are kind of like, where are you at this week? Well, this has been going on for me. Really, that's been happening with a lot of my clients as well. So we kind of take a pulse on the universe and where our friends are at, where we're at. And that is often the way we, you know, select our segments. And then Suzanne, you can tell them kind of like when people purchase segments, that kind of thing. Or
yeah, so we also have under the full, when we're doing these full production episodes, because we still do the low production ones interspersed, but when we have a sponsored on location show, meaning we're bringing our show to your business, we sit down with the business owner and say, what topic feels authentic to you, or what, you know, what's coming up in your life, because we really want so for instance, we did our last show at a salt therapy room business. So they have these salt therapy rooms, and the owner of that business was diagnosed with MS a few years ago. And that's why she bought this business, because she really wanted to come up with alternative healing options for herself in the community. So the thought of the topic of health crisis and how do you cope with a health crisis was really something that she wanted us to talk about. Now, we don't sell the content. So our content is Shannon and I and our producer. We got on a conference call. For instance, we just got on a conference call today about this Friday show. And we kind of go through a rundown, like Shannon and I talk about, okay, for the first block, here's kind of what we're going to talk about. Here are some stories that I can talk about that have happened in my life. And Shannon will do the same, but it's not scripted. It's just, hey, here's kind of an outline of what it's going to look like. And then Shannon comes up with Shannon's toolbox. So every episode, Shannon has 3 tools of actionable things you can do to kind of help with this topic. So for instance, for health crisis, are we gonna, do you remember the tools for health crisis, Shannon? But it was like, you know.
One of them is really like believing. You have to have a medical professional that believes that you can heal, and you have to believe that you can heal. You know, speaking to people that get cancer diagnoses, you can't go to a doctor that is telling you you're going to die, because the power of the mind in conjunction with the power of the body. So I remember that was one of the tools, is to have a physician that believes that you can live, that believes that this is worth fighting for, that believes in you, and that's open to outside resources. Again, with cancer, a lot of times people want to venture out into different modalities.
Alternative,
say, no, you have to do only one way. So that would be one of the tools. I think another, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, my daughter's calling me. Let me just decline this. Sorry, Lane.
Family first.
Declining you. Yeah, so that's how we do come up with Shannon's tool, or Shannon comes up with Shannon's tools. I shouldn't say we, because Shannon is really good at that. She comes up with 3 tools. So our second segment is always the toolbox. And then we also come up with resources. So things that, like books that can help you, or and you know, whether it's a website or some sort of you know, person that can help you. Like we also give resources. And then the third segment of our sponsored show is called The Best Thing Ever. And that's Shannon and I just talking about something that we think is the best thing ever. one of our episodes was this journal that that I actually was given as a gift before I left the station. And at the top and it kind of prompts you throughout the entire year to come up with your intention and kind of take you through the year. And at the top of my list in January of 2018, it was to leave my job and stop getting up at 2:30 in the morning. And by October of 2018, I had left my job and had stopped getting up at 2:30 in the morning. So, it's things like that we love, or, some hidden horoscope that's hidden in this like clothing store website that no one knows about. It's theloft.com. It's so crazy. It's such a good horoscope. Like, for instance, this week's episode, we're going to do, Shannon came up with this shampoo that she's loving, and it's the best thing ever. So we do that segment, which we like to do at the end because it's fun and a little lighter if our topics are heavy. Yeah. But I mean, the show is not scripted, but it is produced. So the things you saw, the pre-production, so what we call headlines in the TV business, is something that I pre-produce. So I write it, and then I do me on camera saying, in today's episode of What Your Friends Won't Tell You, and then we shoot some video, and I get my videographer to edit all that together. So it feels very produced at the top. And it's also teasing people about what's coming up in the show so that they don't leave. What we're finding, and I'm sure you guys find too, is, once your live stream starts, you're like, get this spike, but then as the show, progresses, you're kind of, you're losing your audience. Hopefully not for this episode.
No. You're amazing.
People are so enraptured they are not leaving. But we just try to tell people what's coming up so that they are able to kind of know that there's some really good meat throughout the show, some good stuff.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, for sure. We've had different things to try and like, we start early. We have that pre-show, so we don't start with a cold audience. So we start 15 minutes early usually, and people are mingling inside. And we show past thumbnails from all the other interviews we've done with music. Then
that's smart. So we had started doing our live stream pre-roll, and we just had like a countdown clock. And so we were doing that like 10 minutes before the show. But what we were seeing was people were like coming in and spike. But then by the time the show started, they hadn't, they were gone.
Right.
So what we've started doing now is we just bring up the live stream 30 seconds before the actual show starts.
Okay.
And we're finding that we have, because people aren't leaving. If you have content like what you guys are doing and you're showing content, it probably is not a big of a deal. But for us, it was just a countdown clock, and people were like, well, I got to go, wash the dog or whatever, and then they forget, oh crap, What Your Friends Won't Tell You is on. So yeah, so we've tried to be strategic about our live stream and when it goes up and that sort of thing.
We know our audience, and because probably the biggest difference between ours and yours is we get more creators versus viewers. So every creator loves to meet new creators. So that's kind of their chance to kind of pass the business card along to each other and stuff like that. So that's kind of what's holding them there. And then we go on, we do the introductions, and then we do a roll call a few minutes in, and then we do what we call the hashtag blue, because in the chat, everybody has blue wrenches here. Everybody's a moderator. And that was to kind of take away the stigma, because of the 1K, 4K, that kind of became a thing. All the arguing, I'm a moderator, you're not, with a bunch of channels. So we said, you know what, everybody's going to be one. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
So we got the Blue Wrench group.
That's a great idea.
Yep, we get them to send in selfies under the hashtag Blue Wrench group, which was good marketing for our Twitter, and plus kept everybody busy for the first couple of minutes. So then that helps get our show out more to people. And
and it grows our Twitter too, because they tag us in, they use the same hashtag, and that gets them chance to connect with each other as well, and as well as with us. So yeah. Works both ways, and they are enjoying it.
Yes.
It's always fun.
Yeah, I like it because you're kind of putting them in charge.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just sending the link to my daughter so she can watch us.
Oh, that's
fun.
She's skiing with her dad right now. So.
Where are they? Not the exact location, but I'm guessing
they're in Colorado.
Colorado. That's Oh, beautiful territory.
Colorado. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're seeing snow too.
Yes, that's right. They just had to travel for a couple hours by plane to get to it.
That's right. That's right.
We have a couple of questions from the chat. If you don't mind, Dangerous Criminals was saying, Shannon, did you know you look a bit like Loretta, a suite of mashed?
Loretta.
I haven't gotten that before.
I don't even know who that is.
Is that MASH from years ago?
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
I'll have to go back and look. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think it's a great compliment. I love
thank
that.
you. I remember. I used to watch MASH, actually. I am that old.
Oh,
Oh my God.
we've compared our ages to you're still a spring chicken.
And then we also had a question as well for Shannon. If you had thought of doing motion picture movies.
Have I had the thought of it? Only since I was 2 years old. But other than that, no. Yeah, I was the kid that entertained the family at every Christmas, every holiday. I sang, I danced, I did comedy shows. It's always been my passion. But I'll be honest, probably maybe 8 years ago, I decided to go out for a couple of the not local, actually. I went out for the Nashville Star, I think it was called. There was the singing contest that was from Nashville. And then I went out for The Voice.
Ooh.
In Orlando, they had open cast calling. And I said, you know what? I just have to do it because kind of like what Suzanne was talking about with, the opportunities that you have today. We didn't have those when I was a kid. We didn't have American Idol. We didn't have art schools when I was young. So these opportunities I felt like I never really had when I was in my prime. So I said, you know what? I said to my husband, I just have to do this. And he said, absolutely, let's do it. It'll be fun. So we drove to Orlando, late one afternoon and showed up the next morning and showed up for The Voice casting. And it was like a cattle call. There was 1 billion people there. And it was really validating for me because to see the people like myself who had a dream, but a lot of the people there had the same dream their whole life, and they'd been fighting for 10, 20 years, singing, at karaoke and waitressing and just trying to get to the top. And when they got rejected, I mean, they put us in a room 3 or 4 at a time and, kindly just looked at all of us at the end and said, thank you. And nobody was selected from my group. Actually, it was probably 5 of us. Nobody was selected from my group. I saw thousands of people get turned away. People were crying in the hallways, slamming their hands on tables, why can't this happen for me? And it was really amazing for me. So healing to say, you know what, there's a lot of talented people in the world, and not everybody is going to have, not everybody's going to be Mariah Carey or Melissa McCarthy, or it's not going to happen for everybody. And it doesn't mean you're not talented. So it was one of the first times in my life that I really realized that I hadn't made a mistake, that I did it right, that putting my passion into a career that really served me and made me feel good about myself, that I love, was the right choice. And gosh, if I could stumble into something now that was, and what your friends will tell you I love, but I dream all the time about being an extra even on a show. But who knows what would happen. But it's not for everybody, and it's not as glamorous as you would think. I drove my daughter's an actress, actually. She was a theater major, and she too, by the end of theater school, after 4 years of theater school, she said, I don't want to do this permanently. But her very best friend did do it and has been on movies, and she got my daughter a spot in one of the TV shows that she was on in Miami, and of course the name of it's leaving me right now, but she was on it for a couple of years. And we drove to Miami and we sat for 18 hours, I think, 9 a.m. and my daughter got to shoot at like 8 p.m. and then she shot for like an hour or two, and we waited 4 or 5 months for the episode to come out. It was a TV show. I wish I could remember it because it was really wonderful. It was in the Miami hotel, and it was shot back in the 60s, 70s. And we waited and got all excited, and we sat down to watch it, and she ended up on the cutting room floor. So all that time, and they never even shot her for 5 minutes. She never made TV for 5 minutes. And I thought, boy, this is an interesting industry. I don't really know that I would want to do this, but I'm drawn to it. I've always been drawn to it. So it's an interesting career.
It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
No.
Anything in the arts, because the chances are so slim and so much to compete with and so much room to be let down. Yeah, it is really weeds out people. And sometimes it's good to leave it as a dream. You know, sometimes that's the better way to leave it at. You know, sometimes it's better to be that than to be crushed. You know, and it can be crushing. I've seen it. We had this music company I worked for. We were Marshall Canada, for instance, Marshall amplifiers. So we had Slash in all the time, all these big names. We also got the calls for people wanting to be part of it, and it was hard. It was really hard. You know, like, oh, I played it for years, and I've been to Sault Ste. Marie, as you were talking today with your friend, you know, and I've done all these things, and they've put their heart and soul, and it's not a fit, you know? And they do. Sometimes grown men 6'2" that play rock do cry on phones.
Devastating. It can be devastating. Yeah. Wait a minute. I just want to check. Am I not famous?
Well, yes. I was going to say you're on here. You made it to Pusa Studios, so I mean, there's, you know. No, we're not that. Please never take us on YouTube. Yeah, that came with a big side order of irony when I said that, just so I'm clear. And I think you guys are so. I mean, it's only gonna get bigger and bigger for you guys. You guys just got all the right elements together in that, and the more you talk about the way you look at it, the way you do it, I can't see any other option for it, to be perfectly honest.
Thank you.
We're banking on you guys knowing us once you get gigantic. You say, well, you know, there is this channel, Pusa Studios. That's around.
Speaking about being on a cut floor and I wanted to ask a very serious question going to from jokes. We're talking about the filtering and, you know, the news cast system and the movies where everything, lots of things get cut out and so on. YouTube obviously is most of the time no filter platform. And I wonder, how do you perceive it from the point of view of being on TV before, where you do have this filtering system and maybe even sometimes censorship, so to say, for YouTube that is basically, a free-for-all, so to say. Everybody can broadcast, everybody can put their content out there, and there is no filtering, no certification, nothing like that. Anybody can put anything out there. What do you think about that?
I mean, listen, there's good and bad to everything. I think that I think what I love about the emergence of YouTube and the different social platforms is that people who did not have a voice before now have a voice. Mm-hmm. And you know, I was just doing an interview with a Palm Beach Post reporter for a podcast that I do called People of Palm Beach. And she said, you know, it really is kind of struck her because groups that maybe were not heard before, are now being heard through social channels and through YouTube. So I think the fact that everyone has a platform, everyone has their own TV channel. I mean, that's the way I look at it. You have your own TV channel, you know, anyone can have their own TV channel, and that's good and bad. You know, I love it because now I can curse. I could never curse on TV.
Well, why don't you lay one out for the folks? This is your chance here. I give you the floor is all yours. Lay one out for everybody.
Damn. That's all I got. My mom would not like it if I just curse for no reason. When I curse, it's for a reason, Andrew.
What I do is like to give a French lesson because seal, the animal in French, is PHOQUE, and it sounds like the F word. So whenever I want to get one out, I make it a learning episode. So
I love it.
But I think that I think that it's good that broadcast television has a filter because, you know, but I also think it's, you know, not YouTube's job to filter and, you know, keep content out of the hands of people that maybe shouldn't be watching it. I think that's a parent's job.
Right.
But listen, there's going to be good and bad to everything. You know, it's like people say, oh my God, kids these days, they're so messed up. They're on their phones constantly. And it's like, yeah, but kids like can do stuff that we never were able to do. And
That's
we
right.
always say the generation below us is effed up. I'm not going to say the F word.
Seal
Always
it's
say-
okay.
You know, we always say the generation below us is messed up because
That's
of
true.
technology or whatever it is. Oh, you know, in reality, you know, we evolve. That's
Yep.
what we do. You know, that's what we do as a society. We evolve and we get technologies that we didn't have back then.
And we also see things with rose-colored
kids will be
glasses. Yes. And we see things with rose-colored glasses too from our childhood. That wasn't only
Right.
like
Exactly.
I'll have some of the older ones say, you know, oh my God, the graphic violence on games today. Did you ever open a newspaper in 1920s during Prohibition and see 8 bullet-riddled bodies laying across? Like, you remember those shots? You see them in Discovery Channel when they do things. What was more violently graphic than that? You know, so
I know. And I saw someone posted something on Instagram the other day, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I was watching this channel, and it was you know, a tiger was killing an elk, and who puts this stuff on TV?" And I'm like, "You know that's real life, right?" Like,
Don't go to Africa.
I know. Don't go to
Gonna be
South
very
Africa or it was just the craziest thing. Like the violence these days. It's like, really? That was a tiger eating, you know?
That's called dinner.
yes, that's called survival. You know,
Survival,
it
right.
should get a pass on.
Let's make a tiger vegetarian. My God.
But it's just crazy to me how people think, you know, there's always something, you know, technology is screwing us all up.
It
you know,
is.
listen, yes, there are some bad parts of technology, and people, you know, it highlights what people are already going to be. So if you're
Yes.
bad, you want to use technology to be bad, you're going to be able to do that.
That's right.
You know,
Right.
but there's a lot of good to social and YouTube and those platforms because it has connected people in a way that we've never been connected before.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing. Look what we're doing right now. For all intents and purposes, we're doing a broadcast worldwide. You guys are in Florida. We're here. It's all real time. People from around the world watching, all different time zones. We're showing footage as you're talking. Even just a couple of years ago, this was near impossible to do. Things are changing that fast now. And it's amazing. You know, we take it for granted because it changes so fast and it's so integrated so quickly in our lives now. Like our kids are 21, 12, and 8. Each one of them kind of grew up in a different generation, if you think of it that way.
Yeah.
You know, like my daughter, barely a
Wow,
mouse.
you have them spread out.
Yes, we cover. So nobody can say to us, "Oh, you don't understand this age." Believe me, we've covered it at some point somewhere down the road.
Yes.
To Xenia's credit, the oldest is for my previous because I don't want to make Xenia. She's a very good stepmom.
Yeah.
So, just so anybody's doing the
still.
math at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of blended family as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But still, yeah, and they do have different experiences with social media and with
Oh, sure.
you know, like our daughter doesn't understand how you can't get a SpongeBob just in an instant when we go to our grandparents. You know, it's like you have to have it right there. No, you know, it comes up in a certain time.
Yeah.
What? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's a completely different perception.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
We haven't
Yeah.
had TV in a couple of years. We gave it up because nobody was watching it, so she grew up pretty much without it. So it was no offense to the TV. It was just something not being used enough. So.
Mm-hmm.
No, my kid, listen, I have a freaking huge TV right here. Do you know my kids never watch that TV? They're watching on their phones. I'm like,
Yeah.
you have this huge screen. Why are you watching on the tiny one?
But
I
they
just
have-
don't get it.
But they have their own gigantic television because it's 4 inches away from their eyes. So really, it's like watching a 140-inch screen that you can carry around with you.
True. That's true.
It is fascinating. My daughter, we bought her a
Thank
TV.
you.
We bought my son and my daughter both TVs for their rooms. Not that big, just, you know, pretty small, but just for their rooms years ago. And like 3 years later, she's like, "Can you get this out of here? It's taking up space on my dresser."
Oh
Never
my.
even watched it. Ever. Sorry.
And we would have given our left arm for it at the time.
Poor TV, I know. Remember, my parents never let me have a TV in
Oh.
my room.
We had one that
And then I
lasted
got
for.
one, it was like this big. You know?
Yeah.
You were doing
Like the big fat bulb on the back,
Oh,
you know?
those were sexy. Those were. My parents had a 27-inch Zenith for 36 years with the wooden legs holding it up. You couldn't kill it. We prayed for it to die. You know.
But do you think that is the reason why people are switching to YouTube more, including yourself, and lots of other celebrities and TV personalities are going more and more onto YouTube from TV?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You know, people don't have time anymore. You know, the world is moving so much faster than it used to.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if it's just because I'm older and things have changed for me, but, you know, when I was younger, I watched TV all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even I would say 10, 15 years ago, I was watching TV a lot.
Yeah.
Watch TV hardly at all anymore.
Exactly.
And when I do, it's, you know, I want it to be on my own time. You know, if I love a show, I'll watch it on, you know, we have on demand, which you can watch it anytime you want. It's same with YouTube. You know, if you want a show that you know, people can go watch it whenever they want. They don't have to, you know, wait for 8 o'clock on Tuesday.
Right.
You know?
Doug TenNapel was on with us, and I was talking with him today, the creator of the video game and then the TV exec, and I said, with all the things you've done, the Steven Spielberg, blah, 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 why are you in YouTube? Like, you know, I'm trying, this is what I get you guys on, is what I've been searching for, is this golden egg. And he told us that he was pitching a show to Netflix, and of course they had what most people know, 60% of people under 45 in North America don't have a standard television anymore.
Yeah.
But there was an asterisk there, and of course Netflix didn't want to tell him what it meant, so that took 2 weeks of digging. He found out the asterisk was talking about the amount that YouTube is now biting into even Netflix and these on-demand services.
Wow.
So he went back to cartooning. What he originally was a cartoonist, and he just drew his latest book, and it's so neat the way things have evolved. For him now, he's doing lower numbers, but what limited runs.
Yeah.
All net funding. I think he raised like 200,000, and he's drawing them right in front of the fans who will eventually read them. So they do live streams every day, and you actually see it being created. And then he invites all these young artists to come up with him at the end on Hangouts and draw with them for an hour. So they're not only seeing it being made, but they're actually interacting with them being made.
Unreal.
And it's he said, I'm going to make more money off of this one right now than I've ever done in the others, because it's all hands-on and more interaction and more fan support than I've ever had.
Yeah, he raised over $200,000 and just for the book creation that way, and he's doing another run on the game and so on, and just evolving from this new series now, and he's cutting out the middleman, so to say. And
you're cutting exactly. You don't need the major media companies. No. And the other thing that resonated with me when you were talking was it's the interaction too.
Yes.
You know, I think that is what makes it so special. You know, for my first 10, 15 years in my career on TV news, you know, it was always one way.
Right.
I was giving you the news, you know, and then once social media and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook came on, it was a two-way street. People were talking to me and giving me feedback while I was on the air. And that is something that, you know, the audience has never had. Right. You know, it's creating this interaction that people love. You know, it's like why you're live streaming, you know, and because you have all these comments and people are commenting while you're live streaming. You get instant, you know, people can have access to you that they never had with TV before.
And I have to ask you this will tie into it, and I've wondered this for a while. TV was very, in general, all areas of the whole span of it, through the networks, right down affiliates, local, everybody worked for it, was very apprehensive about jumping online. Most of them seen it as a flash in the pants, it wouldn't work, it wouldn't go. Out of all of them, it seems mostly it was newscasters that were the only ones that kind of seen there was some promise in social media. When you think about it, way before the stars ever started tweeting out every little thought comes in their head, it was a lot of the newsmen, a lot of the weather people, a lot in the station itself that were the only ones to gravitate to it. Do you think there's a reason why, or have you noticed that too?
Well, I mean, I think you got to think about people in the news business. We're already social people. I mean, that's who we are. I know, you know, when I first got on Facebook, was, you know, pretty early on. I got on Facebook and Twitter very early on. And I remember that I would get yelled at by my news director because she was like, you're supposed to be working and you're on this Facebook.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like you guys just don't get it. I mean, I am talking to viewers. They are giving me story ideas. They are giving me feedback. This thing is amazing. Yeah. And I really had to like fight to explain to them what this was all about. Right. And now you get yelled at if you're not on Facebook or Twitter or tweeting, or, you know, if you're not all that. That's a requirement now of the job. Right. That you have to be doing all those things. And so it's really interesting to see how it's morphed. And I think there are still, you talk to companies and businesses, old school brands that, you know, are still doing TV advertising, and they don't understand what running a YouTube or a Facebook ad, like how undervalued that is. You know, you can run a Facebook ad for a fraction of the cost that you can send out a little flyer to my home that I'm going to throw away.
Well, yeah.
You know?
I love the way you put it. I just picture those old time sales guys with the piano, you know, we're going to make them a pitch, folks. We're going to get them out there. That's the type we're still like kind of apprehensive to the whole thing. You know?
I mean, exposure, even for us, the live streaming, the instant interaction with the viewers, is what makes them interested in, you know, what lipstick do I have on, or Andrew's new haircut. And I, you know, and it's it is. And I think,
oh my gosh, you did get your haircut. It was longer today when we were doing our test, right,
Shannon?
Yes. I know today I look like a drowned rat. That's why I was like, these are some good-looking gals that have been on TV. I got to clean up a little there. It's enough.
That's
oh my God, you cut your hair for us. I love it.
It was like a dog getting groomed. It was like a dog. Yes, you inspired me with the hair wash. See, and I did think of that.
He did. He got off with you guys, and he said, "I need a haircut right now."
That's amazing.
We're inspiring hygiene, Suzanne. Who knew?
And Shannon said, "I got all out. I even washed my hair today." So yes, you did inspire me. Thank you. Oh my God.
No, I forgot what I was saying.
You were saying that the interaction with the live stream, just people notice things and are able to tell you instantly.
Yes.
And by the way, what color lipstick are you wearing?
Yeah, it's Ruby Red by MAC, by the way.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, and there's more and more, I think, advertising into micro influencers. There's more interaction directly with the customer that potentially can buy things that we are advertising, let's say, than it is putting the ad on TV or in the newspaper, because that reaction to the product, let's say, is instant. And I think more and more brands are getting into it, but it's still quite new, and you kind of have to explain what is going on and, you know, how does it really works.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge for us with our show and selling our show, is just explaining, you know, that we're not on TV, traditional TV. You know, we're all digital, you know, and it's very, to explain to people that don't really get it, that is our biggest challenge, you know, and explaining to people what kind of exposure we do bring to them and to their business, you know, because, you know, I think, to be honest with you, we're giving people more exposure through our videos and being on location on their businesses than they would ever get if they were to run a TV spot.
I agree. Definitely. For sure. And I think that's a huge transition for companies and businesses to understand that. And they're still not there yet, so to say. Kind of falling behind.
Well, when I worked for that music company, I left in 2008. I mean, we were one of the biggest private distributors of music equipment in the world. I mean, we were huge. And trying to get them to see the potential of doing things on Facebook was the same thing. It was just roadblocks and blank stares and some even insults, you know, like, seriously, that's what we're paying you for. And it's like, we're really missing the boat here, guys. And we should be the leader. If the stores are going to follow and all these other ones, we should be setting the pace. And it was like pulling teeth, you know?
Yeah. But you know, by the time everyone gets on board, Facebook ads won't be so cheap. And advertising on YouTube won't be so cheap, you know? That's when everyone's on board.
Exactly. That's
You
the
know?
sign when you know everybody's going
That's
the same
when the
way.
sign that you know that everyone thinks it's a good thing to do.
Yes.
But
That's
it's a captive audience, because when I'm watching TV, I'm fast forwarding through every commercial. There's
Yes.
no way you're going to get me to watch a commercial on TV. No way. I pause, I fast forward, but it's a captive audience. On Facebook, I've attempted to order lots of things that I shouldn't have because it's just too easy, right? Like our best thing ever that took my 9 weeks to get because I ordered it on Facebook, the hair dryer curler thing, and I still stand by it. It's the best product ever, but I waited 9 weeks to get it from China. I don't want to talk about it.
There's a statistics about Instagram ads. Like 70% of people say they have bought something they saw on Instagram.
Yeah.
Hello, that's a crazy number.
Yep.
70%.
Yep. We put our links for our equipment that we use, and just being on here, and when we changed our mics,
Yep.
people are buying them. The Amazon links, the affiliates are down there below. Of course, we get like a little bit off it. It's amazing just by doing that and the change it made.
We should start making them.
yeah, we should be buying stuff.
The middleman off.
Yeah, that's right. But just that change in the way we sounded, and it's just because we upped. But I mean, lots of mics would sound good, but just because they heard us using them and it was different from what we had before, it sparked that kind of, oh my God, I can make my channel better sounding that way. Where do I get them? And then we're all writing down. We started getting notifications and we're buying them. There is a lot of influence into it, so
Yeah.
it's a different way of marketing, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure MAC Ruby Red Lipstick is like through the roof right now.
Amazon link down below.
The Google Analytics on that. How many people have Googled MAC Ruby Red Lipstick?
Tell them,
And you should get a cut of that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, she looks good, doesn't it? Yeah.
Thank you. Going by the way you're producing your show, I have two questions for you. For Shannon, what are 3 tools to come up with to succeed on YouTube?
Oh boy, she's hitting me hard, Suzanne. She's merging technology and
Putting you on the spot. You got this, Shannon.
Woo! So 3 tools to say that again, Ksenia. 3 tools
To succeed on YouTube.
Okay, well, the first is you have to believe you're going to succeed. You have to believe you're going to succeed. You have to be patient and put in the time to succeed. Nothing happens overnight. So set a goal, set a dream, anything that you have as a goal, you have to take the time to do it for sure. The third way to succeed on YouTube. Ooh, can I cheat?
I got it.
And
I got
phone
it.
in a friend? Suzanne?
Be authentic.
Yes.
Be authentic.
You got it. That's absolutely right. Yep. There it
Awesome.
is.
I love those. That answer.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Suzanne, what are the resources for being on YouTube or being a creator? What would you suggest to tap into?
You know who okay, so I followed this guy for about 2 years leading up to me leaving CBS 12, and he really is, and I'm sure you guys have heard of him, Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V.
Yep.
I listened to his podcast and I watched his videos, and he's really someone that kind of understands the whole not just creating content but also marketing it, which I think is a really big chunk of what this is all about. Other than just creating it, you really have to understand how to market it too.
Yes.
And trying to think who else that I really, some books that I've read that I just think are really helpful what are some books that I've read about? Oh, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. It's a really great book, and it kind of gives you that confidence, because I think that's one of the key things that you need in succeeding on YouTube is getting confidence.
Yes.
Because they can smell your insecurity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Smell your insecurity through the camera. So make sure you get that confidence, and that book will help you. You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And then I would follow Gary V. I would really dive into his podcast and listen to him because I think he has some really great tools. And, you will find, and this was the other thing that I really love about Gary Vee. He said, when you're ready to take action, you will stop listening to me. And it's so true, because I did all this research and I was like, really diving into all this stuff. And all of a sudden I realized, within the last 5 or 6 months, I haven't been listening to him.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm now taking action, so just do the research, but at some point you have to stop reading and researching and going to conferences and figuring out everything and just take action. So
yeah. Or your partner will get on your case.
Yeah. I was in one of Gary Vee's chats. I would go there periodically, and I like him a lot. And I met a channel. We actually had a guest on the other week. He teaches people how to cut their hair like the stars and that. He was our biggest channel, almost 600,000 we've ever had on here.
Wow.
And he came in the chat, and something that what you just said, once you do it, you won't need me anymore. I'm watching the chat, and I find it so interesting because all everybody's in there mostly is doing is quoting Gary Vee. Da-da-da-da-da, this means that, and this means that, and nobody's doing it. And this guy comes in, he's got a check mark by his name, so he's a big guy. And he even starts talking that he has a book, and Gary has done the preface into it. And nobody even approaches him. And I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. Wow, that's really interesting. God, that's great. By the way, we have an internet show where we interview people and that. And within 2 minutes, he's like, damn, I'm there. Send me a DM. We're going to do this.
Because he had a book coming up to promote. So
Yeah.
obviously, that was essential for him as well.
But I told people in there, and I said, guys, if Gary Vee was in here right now, he'd be listening, yes, but he would be networking with every single person in here because everybody should be go-getters that are in this chat. It's like, to me, it's always like a business luncheon or, the old days, a business card exchange. Mm-hmm. Like, get your hands. It's nice to quote the guy, but a lot of them do that but never act onto it. And you're right. I see these people, and I know they've probably got 5 years of saying everything he's ever said.
Yeah.
And that's
but no action.
No action. That's where it's going to begin and end is where they are at that moment.
Yeah. The other thing that I just recently did, I went to a podcast conference. It's called Podfest. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I heard of it, but never been there.
You've been there?
No, we've never been there. Hopefully soon though.
It's, it's great. And it's not just for podcasting. It's for YouTube. It's for any sort of digital media.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I learned so much there. The conference is very reasonably priced. They have it in Orlando every year. I think, around March is when they have it. But if you have, and if you're struggling, they do have scholarships. So they do give away tickets to people. I think you can find that on their website. So, it's called Podfest and it's Orlando. They had these workshops that I learned so much, and and I'm pretty savvy with this stuff already, but I was surprised how much I learned, and it was really, really helpful. So I would say try to get to one of these conferences if you're really interested in creating content and YouTube and podcasting. It wasn't just for podcasting, though. I will tell you that there were all different workshops on. There was just a couple workshops on YouTube. There were just a couple workshops on like creating online courses. So it was all kinds of digital media stuff. And it was really interesting.
Anything like that. That's the ones that go in here is the ones that are open to learn anything. They're like sponges.
Yeah.
That's the ones that have a good chance of making it somewhere because you've got to be learning constantly. And that's what gives you that edge to stand out from the rest is just information, knowledge all the time.
What is the best thing ever about your show?
Shannon.
And Suzanne.
I love that. That was a perfect answer.
The best thing ever is when we cry, which is almost every episode.
Yes.
And laugh.
It's like, okay, who's crying today?
Yeah, no. Yeah, we laugh and we cry.
But that's what makes it so real, and that's what I love watching about you guys' show is that it makes it so real. You laugh, you cry, it is like hanging out with friends, but friends won't tell you, and I think that's what draws people into your show to watch it. real you, really like hanging out with the girls at that lunchtime for 4 times or 5 times a week. That's amazing, and that's why I love it so much.
Thank you.
What is to come up? What is the next show about on Friday?
So the show on Friday, oh gosh, my brain's not. What is it?
Special needs. The show on Fridays on special needs. We're being sponsored by Banyan Global, and they, the woman that works there had a special needs child that passed away recently, and so it's very near and dear to her heart, and it's a show that we've wanted to do for a very long time. I have clients who have special needs children, and it's just, I think it's an overlooked topic. And if you don't have a special needs child, you sometimes can be just kind of out of the loop and not really think about it. And so it's something we really want to place on people's hearts, to be more compassionate, more understanding, more empathic about what it's like to have a special needs child, and also give more resources for those that are walking through that. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, it's all about, coping with the physical, the emotional, the financial aspect of having a special needs child. And the sponsor, like Shannon said, this was something they really wanted us to tackle. And it is, just her story that, she had a child.
A hard subject, but a very important subject. Because there is so many aspects. It is a huge burden financially, emotionally on so many people.
Oh yeah. And it ranges, there's so many ranges from, someone with or a child with autism that maybe isn't, that is high functioning, to someone who's, completely dependent on their parents for everything. So there is that wide range. It's almost like when we did the health crisis one, you just have to kind of tackle it with a lot of empathy and, trying, because I don't have a special needs child. Shannon doesn't have a special needs child. So it's really, I'm meeting with the group or the two tomorrow to kind of talk about, how to broach this subject. And it's all about research too. We try to speak to people. So we're not just coming at it from our perspective. It's also from the perspective of people who are actually going through it.
Yeah.
I don't want to...
Definitely.
Oh, sorry. No, please, you.
Well, it's just something that I've been so touched learning how much we take for granted. We just take for granted, like, parents can gripe and fuss about how hard their day was because they didn't want to take a bath. And for that parent of an autistic child, they literally wrestle with their child for hours to get them to take a bath. Whereas, for you and I, it might be like, it's annoying and we have to tell them 3 times and we're so frustrated. Right. So for me, it's just, it's really wanting to impart to people, to not take that for granted, to really have compassion and step in and help wherever you can when you see somebody who's walking through this. Because I think that, working with people who have special needs children, they say things like, in regards to how selfish the world can be, but it's that we're ignorant. We just don't even think about it.
Yes.
It's not I'm being selfish. It's that I didn't even consider that it took you 4 hours to get your child to bathe versus my 10 minutes that I was frustrated with. So we're excited to educate.
That's awesome. Because I wanted to ask you guys, going back to the news because I wanted to ask this earlier and I didn't get a chance to, and this ties into it. When you get into subjects that are very hard, like now, you guys get to talk to people, plan it out more. But I have to ask what it's like when you're sitting at the news and they come in and something like the Florida shooting, for instance, comes in, and it's go time, and there's such a big tragedy thrown directly in your face. What's it like to be in the studio like that and get some, like, the producers running in and I don't know if I forget the timing that happened. I'm just taking this example, whatever one. What's it like when they come in with that, guys, we got a story here, we got to get onto it right away, and it's not just, it's something that's probably very heavy to cover in such a short amount of time.
Well, I think, for me, that those shootings is what kind of started having me feel like I didn't want to be in the business anymore. The Vegas shooting, I remember it was happened at night, but I would get in at like 3:30 in the morning. So you would start to hear all the details coming in as you're preparing for the show.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, you kind of, you're desensitized to it, but you're not, you know, so it's like this weird feeling, whereas like, you're like, how am I going to do this? But you just do it. And the Parkland shooting was especially hard for me because a friend of mine lost her niece in that shooting.
Oh,
so
no.
I had a personal connection. And, you know, it was so close to us here. You know, we're in South Florida, so it's literally right down the road from us.
Right.
So, you know, listen, it's the news is difficult to begin with. It's even more difficult when you can't get out of it, you know, when it's constantly bombarding you.
Yes.
And that was just the hardest thing for me. Like, I couldn't get away from the details.
Right.
You can turn off the news, and if you don't want to hear any more of the details,
right.
But hearing those parents agonizing over if their child was still inside that school, or, you know, hearing the people getting so frustrated after the Vegas because they couldn't find their friends, you know, those kind of things just like, you know, ripped my heart out. It ripped my heart out. And I lost it on the air a couple times. And I knew when I started doing that I just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, that's why I asked, because of the timing when you mentioned, when you're thinking it was, I would think lined up somewhere in the Parkland, you know, era and all that. That's why I was wondering if there was maybe one of those events.
Yeah, Parkland was in February of last year. So, and I decided in March that I was leaving. So it was literally like a month later.
Because especially living in the area, I mean, you know, it's closer to home and the things, and it's got to be a lot of pressure over the years. It's got to be, you know, because like you say, we can turn it off.
Listen, you think about anything. I tell people this same thing, and Shannon does too, that, you know, what we are putting into our brains, it impacts you. Of course. You know, it impacts your life. It impacts your emotional health. Like, I have not watched one thing of news since I left, and my anxiety level is down significantly. I have no idea what's going on in the world. And my life is not any less because of it, you know? I mean, in fact, I think it's better because of it, because, you know, and listen, I don't think it's good to completely do this and pretend like you don't know anything that's going on, but I definitely needed a break. You know?
But you're from the average person, you had full exposure to something, you know what I mean? It's, you know, you really needed probably to do that full 180 to get that way. So, you know, and understandably so. But yes, I believe we're too bombarded with it. I mean, any news that comes out today is so bombarded by hearsay now just to get the first word out. The pandemonium builds and builds, and we're, you know, it's all over the place. So I think it is good to take it in balance with sometimes not having to see it. So I'll say that to Xenia, you know, they'll say, oh my God, this happened. I'll be like, I'm going to wait 3 hours, let them all get a chance, see where they come through out of that. And usually it's, I mean, it's still a tragedy, and my heart goes out to them. Like if a plane went down, but you don't know right away.
Right. And the breaking, you know, there's a lot of misinformation that comes out in the beginning when there's breaking news, you know.
Yeah, Jonathan Creek, who was for, I think, 15 years in Australian biggest news agency, he's saying the same thing, that he left because it caused him to become compassionately poor. You almost get desensitized in order to be able to carry on through the news segments and delivering the story. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and I would say I had the opposite. Like it almost turned me into such an empathetic mess. Like, and I'm an empath, you know, I feel everything. And so it really was, it made me just feel everything.
Right.
You walking down the hall, Shannon?
I am having a low power mode.
Low power.
Yikes! I told you I'm technologically challenged.
No, you got this. You got this.
I was
low power mode.
When Shannon got connected today, you should have seen how excited Suzanne was.
I
It was like
you got this.
I loved it. I loved it. These are the truest friends I've ever seen, like co-partners I've ever come across. I absolutely love it. Yeah. You guys are so awesome. And I know we're on a little bit, like you said, you're past your bedtime. Once I told you.
Yes, I'm usually in bed by 8:30. I'm like, oh.
Do you still wake up at 2:30?
Suzanne.
I know. I'm starting to fade though.
do you still get up at early mornings now that you're done with the news?
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of, it's my nature.
Yeah.
I'm a morning person to begin with.
Right.
I don't wake up at 2:30, but sometimes I'll wake up at 4:30 and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm up.
And do
you
you like to work at that time morning?
Trying to get back to bed, but
Do you try?
I can't sleep past 6:30.
Do you like to work in the morning when you're up, or you?
Yeah, I'm best in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm best in the morning. I get a lot done in the morning. And by 3 o'clock, I'm like, I'm useless.
She's not lying.
No, I'm not. I'm complete. And I can't even Shannon, like if she wants to do a conference call or something, I'm like, ugh, like I just can't.
Well, thank you so much.
Shannon's best at night. She's a night person.
You know what? Actually, Suzanne, in all fairness, I'm a morning person, but when you say 4 a.m., like that's not morning. That's the middle of the night, my dear.
It comes down to definition.
So I can do 7, and I'm good to go. But yeah, 4 a.m. You're just used to doing the night news, so that's the middle of the night.
Yeah,
I agree.
Gil Skills said, "Thank you so much for staying up later. It's a real pleasure to get to know you guys."
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate you having us on. And,
it's been
and
amazing.
sharing our story and.
You guys are absolutely awesome, and I mean it's so great. You guys are another example of those channels we've been trying to meet that are really wanting to do something special on here. And I always hope it inspires everybody else to kind of go back and look at what they're doing, make some tweets, never copy, but just be inspired to see that people are pushing the boundaries on here, and there's all kinds of advantages to being on this platform. You guys are really awesome.
Yeah, and I'm on all social channels. If you want to hit me up, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm Suzanne Boyd on Twitter. I'm News with Suze on Instagram, and I'm News with Suze on Facebook as well. So you can hit me up, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
We have our wheel twice a week, and you guys, hopefully you guys can drop by Thursday. We got to get you guys some more subscribers, and that's where we can really hit it up. So
yes.
Thank you.
We're trudging along on YouTube. It is our channel it is our platform that wasn't our first platform. So I think Facebook was our first platform, but we're trudging along on YouTube.
You guys are doing great, and they're just because more people need to see what you're doing. You're up to almost 145 now. You've been jumping through the show and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So, yep.
Wow.
Just over 100 before. So that's awesome.
That's wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
No, that's just them.
Well, thank you. All right, I am gonna have to go to bed soon because I'm literally fading.
Your eyes are going night.
And Shannon's not gonna have any power left, so
I'm charging now, baby.
Thank you so much for making it past your bedtime today, and thank you so much,
thanks.
you both, for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. It was nice to meet you guys.
Well, I hope we can stay in touch. I hope this isn't the end, just the begining.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We know where you live.
That's right.
Something.
We're not coming to visit, though. I gotta warn you. 12 below, you're not seeing me. I'm a Florida girl.
And you're definitely not coming for the feet. So
No.
Oh my God.
Feet won't tell you.
Yes, looking forward for that
Hit me
subject.
up if you want pictures of my feet. Okay.
There you go. There's an offer for 1,000 subscribers. Get to see your feet. There you go.
Oh my.
That's right.
Don't do
you.
Have a great
Thank you so
night,
much.
ladies.
Bye bye,
Have a
ladies.
great night.
Guys.
I know.
Bye.
Oh my God, they're awesome. What great people. Oh my God, they were so much fun.
Oh, guys, check out our guests, Susan Boyd and Shannon Thompson-Jones. They are the hosts of What Your Friends Won't Tell You, a show on YouTube and Facebook. The new episode coming up on Friday.
Guys, there was a lot of buff